Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Very, very good. Everything is fine and going well. How about you? How's your everything?
Yeah, yeah, not too bad. I'm working from home, so I'm procrastinating. Not having a rest from work. But it's so cold, like when you're typing. But it's summer here, but
Yeah.
it's still just really, really cold. So I've put the heating on, and I'm waiting for my fingers to defrost.
So I guess this time is basically the beginning of summer. That's why it's a little cold.
It's the end of summer.
It's the end of summer, so summer,
Yeah,
then the next one is gonna be
autumn.
autumn.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're kind of between them both. Like, I don't know when it starts, but sort of September, October becomes autumn. So it should get colder then. Like, it's sunny outside. It's sunny, but it's just really cold.
Yeah, that transition for the weather conditions, I can totally understand. But I really do
Yeah.
like the way that you say autumn because I normally just say fall, the fall.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, lots of everybody says the fall, but I don't know if it's only in the UK that we say the autumn, but
Right.
it's everybody else says the fall.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying that you are working at home. May I ask you
Yeah,
the job that you are having?
yeah, you can. I work in education, so I used to be a teacher. But now I work with schools in mainly in England, but a couple of other schools internationally. So there's one in Kenya, one in Spain, and one in Belgium. And it's all about how can we improve education for children so that they're at the centre. Like in England and in lots of countries, actually, education is just about knowledge. So they just make you remember everything and then test you on it. But like loads of children don't like that, and so we are encouraging a more knowledge and skills. So like the other things that you do in like your habits and the way that you are as a person. So it's more about children-centered development rather than like the system that we've got at the moment, because nobody really leaves school happy. Like even people who are successful, like they've only really learned how to play the system, like how to pass exams. So later in life, when they're either working or at university or they've got to think more for themselves, they haven't really had any practice.
Wow. I I think it's fantastic to hear that from I think you are like probably middle age, right?
Yeah, 48.
Yeah, so a middle-aged teacher like you, because
Yeah,
I think at some point, like I used to be a chemistry teacher in high school as well, and I really don't
yeah,
like the system. But finding the people who are kind of like-minded with me in terms of how
yeah,
the education system should be changed so
yeah,
that it is not just about knowledge base because it's really like plain and boring for people, right? It's more
yeah,
like a task, a very daunting
yeah,
task that kids are afraid of going to school or they're afraid of the finals or midterms and whatnot, but
yeah,
not really liking the subject. And like
yeah,
you said,
that's
I
right.
really do like the idea that you just said that they can't think for themselves. They just have to learn and
Yeah,
memorize and whatnot. So at some point in the future, they need to use the critical thinking
yeah,
and the way
yeah,
that they process everything. So which one is important, which one is
yeah,
not.
exactly.
Memorizing everything is just gonna overwhelm your body and your brain.
But also, you don't need to remember as much nowadays. I mean, like, what do we do when we need to find something out? Like I'm pretty resourceful, so I'm not very good at DIY, for example. But like, I find out like when like I had to change some plugs or fix a fence or do something, and the skills of being able to find out how to do it is important, like, more important than just the remembering what to do. So like you say, if you look something up, your brain needs to be able to critically think about whether that's true or this is true or how you might apply this or whatever else is going on, rather than actually knowing everything in the first place.
Exactly. And I think that the brain is powered in a very, very different way, whether it is powered based on some self-discipline, sometimes hard, coming from the education system.
Yeah.
And some other time it is powered by creativity and also willingness to dive into the ocean of knowledge.
Yeah.
As Asian people usually force their kids to learn so much,
Yeah.
and it's just like becoming so bad and difficult for them to actually navigate around. So their brain is powered only for the sake of passing the class. They're not really in love with that anymore. Especially
that's right.
But I think when it is teaching people how to actually like the process, and if you don't have the knowledge, it's fine and dandy as long as you are, willing to go do what's available or to use what's available in order to figure that out. That's awesome. You can use all the sources from the internet, right?
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, if you think about a lot of it, but it's the same with behavior. Like, I used to be in charge of behavior in a secondary school, and I always took the approach that you have to understand where people are with their behavior. Like, why is somebody acting up or calling out or not engaging with their work? So, like, you have to have this kind of curiosity, but I think in England it's very sort of polarized. Like, people either say in schools, they go, we're going to go relational, like, we're really going to do and understands that, or we go, like, if anybody steps out, like, here are the rules. If you break them, this will happen, and that will happen, and the other. So you get some people who just punish all the time.
Yeah.
And some people who don't believe so much in punishment, but more probably consequences and understanding. Like, so it's a very, a very different thing. So. But then the system is set up like it, so all of the schools are measured here on exam results, and particularly the ones that the government think are important, So if you were somebody who is very creative, like, creative subjects are not well regarded. So, whereas the knowledge-based ones are very much so, so it's like, so schools worry because if they don't push people to do knowledge-based subjects, their results aren't going to look very good. They're going to get, inspected and in trouble and taken over by somebody else who does. So it's a bit of until the system changes. So we do a lot of trying to change the system as well.
Right. Wow. I think when they have like a target in mind, like all of the schools, if they have like a target in mind about pushing all the students for a better result for their final exams or for their overall score, I think it's like really rigid, but at the same time, it gives them some kind of like clear objectives rather than some vague outcomes. Because like schools need money, and the money will come where the objectives are clear, right?
Yeah.
And obvious.
Okay, yeah. Do you need to go?
No. It's
fine. You're okay,
fine. Yeah. I'm back. All of a sudden, like a notification just popped up.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to do. Anyway, yeah. So if schools have some vague outcomes or objectives, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just convincing enough for all the parents to be interested in sending their kids to. Yeah. And I think being in that game of basing all of the curriculums or subjects on the creativity or the willingness or whatever it might be for the student to
Yeah.
learn or to train themselves. It's just like a vast game, and it's not
Yeah.
kind of difficult as a game to actually win.
That's right. Like I always think with the outcomes or objectives or whatever you're looking at, like the question you have to ask as a school or as an educator is like, who are the outcomes and objectives for? Like, are they for us as a school to do well? In a system that we don't terribly agree with, or are they for the children? And I think that is the kind of key to all of it. Like I don't mind some outcomes and objectives of more traditional based school, as long as they are for the children that they're teaching. It's kind of getting that balance right. Like we used to, like in a school that I was at, if people weren't very good at maths, for example,
Right.
and they were getting near their exam time, they would be taken out of sport lessons, art lessons, all those other subjects, and they would kind of make kids do more maths to try and get them to pass. But the kids hated it because like they didn't like maths, they weren't that interested in it, and then they're being taken out of subjects they enjoy
Yeah.
to be able to do it. And like, why would they even want to come to school? And some of them just didn't, because they were like, it's got maths, and then I've got extra maths, and and I need my creativity fix, because that's what turns my lights on. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. We've got a long way to go. But we're branching out, and meeting new people, which is really good, and just connecting with schools. Like we're quite a small organisation. We're like a not-for-profit organisation, but our CEO is going to Dubai. Is going not to Dubai, well, flying via Dubai, but going to Saudi Arabia this week to go into their schools and see a couple of their schools, because the quality there is just not very good. So he's trying to share the practice that you've got, I guess, and find people who are like-minded, who believe in that, and start the change from like the bottom up as well as the top down. So that's what we do. So it's quite interesting. Yeah. How about you? What do you do now?
Like I said, I used to be a chemistry high school teacher, but
Yeah.
then I spent like my 5 years going to that university, finishing my school, but then I totally abandoned my own degree. I didn't
Yeah.
get into the teaching path at all because I wanted to do something else. So it's probably the consequence of heading into the wrong direction. And I was told by everybody around me, especially my mom. My dad passed away when I was 1, so I only had my mom tagging along with me and stepping every single step of the way with me as well. So
Yeah.
he told me to become a teacher or a doctor. So
Yeah.
in my country, after graduating from high school, we really, at that time, in 2017, no, in 2007 or 2008, 7, we gotta take an entrance exam in order to be classified or admitted into a university. And I only
Okay.
had just one option of becoming a teacher.
Right.
All of the program, like my program, was difficult, and it required really, really deep knowledge. And I started
Yeah.
asking myself the same question. And I think kids nowadays have that question like radiating in their head, or going on in their head even more
Yeah.
aggressively. I asked
Yeah.
myself, if I was about to become a chemistry teacher, teaching high school students, why would I have to learn so advanced mathematics and
Yeah.
physics along with
Yeah.
chemistry?
Yeah.
What would these pieces of knowledge benefit
That's
me?
right. You're not gonna need them.
No,
No.
not at all. And also, we gotta learn a little bit about the model of the governmental style. So how the
Right.
government is managing the country. We got to learn all of that too, and a
Yeah.
little bit of some economic subjects. And
Yeah.
I'm just asking myself, like, the school and all of the teachers cannot come up with something that was more practical or
Yeah.
pragmatic
Yeah.
in,
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms
And
of
relevant,
helping
and more
people.
relevant. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Even relevant, more relevant, something that's helpful. They couldn't
Yeah.
come up with anything like that because we spent 5 years learning basically trashy trash because we're not going to be able to use anything.
Yeah. It's not going to help.
Yeah,
It just kind of um, gives people the idea. I mean, that's why it's all set up. It gives people the idea that you are able to learn. Like whatever you learn in that way, it doesn't really make a difference. All they're really doing is they're going, can you learn or not? Like, and that's it. Like, I don't really care what you learn, but have you got the capacity to learn? But like, then teaching you that nonsense over a bunch of years, that doesn't help. I mean, we're talking from the same page, really, aren't we?
yeah, that's right. But I have another question for you. Now
Yeah,
I'm no longer working as a
yeah,
teacher, and I don't want to teach people just because they think that piece of knowledge is important.
yeah,
Because they think that piece of knowledge is important for their workplace
yeah,
or to meet some requirements to proceed to a higher level of education. And I am capable of teaching them that. I wouldn't be very interested in taking the job, to be quite
yeah,
honest with you,
yeah,
because I like the the curious
yeah,
attitude coming from my students. They have to be
yeah.
inquisitive. They have to be
And
curious.
people are naturally inquisitive. Like, it is a human trait to be inquisitive and to ask questions and curious. And those are the things that we live for. You're right.
Exactly.
But schools bash it out. They're like they don't like it, or they like it as long as you're asking the right questions, or you
Right.
know.
And I'm kind of like teaching English online too, and that is so contradictory because when it comes to English skills or skills in any other languages, I think
Yeah,
it's coming from both sides. The person has to be inquisitive, very curious,
yeah,
very passionate about the language, trying to improve
yeah,
not only to meet the requirements for a promotion, for a raise, but also this is like the most important thing in order for one to be successful in the language learning journey. I think it's about the love and the passion developed
yeah,
along the way. So
yeah,
when I see that within my student, yeah, they have a little bit of their side wanting to finish this in order to get a raise. Of course, that's
yeah,
very important. It's also
yeah.
very practical, but
Mm.
they also love the language as well. They love
Yeah,
learning the
yeah,
language,
yeah.
and I
And that's
think,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, and
go ahead.
there are those two types of motivation, aren't they? They call it like extrinsic motivation. Do you know that phrase? Which
Yes,
is where you're motivated because of the things that you get from it. Or the intrinsic motivation is the bit that is like your passion that you really care about. And
exactly.
I met somebody once who I got to come and talk to the children in my school, and her name was Emily Cummins, and she grew up with her granddad who used to just make things in the shed all the time. So she was really interested in just building things and knowing how stuff worked. And she'd invented something because later in his life he developed Parkinson's, and he wasn't able to use his motor skills, but she invented it was kind of a fridge that you could make from natural materials.
Yeah,
And I don't know too much about the exact engineering of it, but it was like a cylinder and another cylinder. And she went to Africa with it, and she went round the villages and showed them how they could make fridges, because they would like they had a lot of trouble with illness and disease, and when they had medicine, they couldn't keep them at the right temperature. So, and she won all sorts of awards for this. But when she came to the school, and we're very lucky to meet her, you know, it's very sort of humbling, somebody who's done that work. But one of the things she said is, if you can get your talent and your passion, like those two things, something that you're really good at and something you really care about, if they match together in terms of what you want to do for your job or your career or in your life, then like you've made it. Like that is the thing that you have to try and do. But you know, it's trying to identify what they are. So to do that, you need opportunities, right? You can't like unless you want everybody to be passionate about solving simultaneous equations or whatever you do. Do you know? It's like, so you need to give opportunity for kids, and they need agency, and you know, like genuine, authentic agency where they can, you know, they can start mapping their future out and knowing what they care about.
Exactly.
So that's a lot of what I do. I went over to Sweden and found a group of schools, because there were a group of schools there who were doing work that was more like that, and they were called Kunskapsskolan schools, which basically, so the way it was different was the curriculum had very little teaching, but the students had a lot of time in what they call sort of workshops to work on the things they sort of care about. So they still had to do maths and English and those things, but they set their own goals in those subjects. So they would say, my goal is to achieve whatever this is, like gold or whatever they called it. And then what they would do is they would access the work themselves, and the teachers would kind of facilitate it and help it and encourage them in terms of the ways of learning. And it was such a good thing. And we came over to a school, I came to a school here that I was working at, and we totally changed the curriculum so that we had built that in where they had less taught time and more time, you know, learning and working on the things that they needed to. And they still had to achieve their goal, but it was like, you know, they had a coach, you know, rather than a teacher. So they would have meetings with a coach once a week who would say, what are your goals? How are you getting on with achieving them? How are you going to plan your week out to make sure that you and it was great. But then, like, the head teacher of that school left, and then we had a new head teacher who said, where are all the textbooks? Where's all this? And just had everybody back in rows, computers away, and it's like, well, I've just done that. I don't get it. And but that is the system. Like, people are scared. Like leaders are scared to do things in the way that they believe. And I always say, if you're going to be like, as a leader, you need two things. One of them is you need to know what you believe in and what you stand for. And the second thing is even when it is really hard, like, you've got to be brave enough to stand by what you really believe in. And so many leaders here, particularly in education, some aren't really sure what they believe in, but they're certainly not brave enough to stand by it. No. And they'll easily go with what they're told. And it just creates this, like, it keeps the system going as it is, where we just have people, you know, I mean, even our exam system, like, if every child in England did really well, did really well in their exams, you'd still have a third of the people failing, because of the way it's set up. It's like, the normal distribution curve where only so many can pass. So the system by design is that, like, a third of children need to fail so that 2/3 can succeed. So you're starting off with a deficit model where, you know, like, rather than saying you leave school with a portfolio of your skills, right, the things that you can show that you can do, that when you go and see an employer, that they can see that you can critically think, you can analyze, you can critique two things, you know, all those sort of things, rather than being able to see that, like, all they see is, okay, you've passed maths and you failed, yeah, or something else, and it's just like, it's just crazy, really.
Right.
Like, everything is moved on in the last, probably, I don't know, 80 years, like, in society, the way it is. But schools are the same. They're just the
Yeah,
same.
I think it's gonna be the same for a very, very long time because like tidal waves happen in order to move, you know, the status to a much more positive point. But the problem is like schools still have to have some funds, right? They have to
Yeah,
have money, and they are actually undergoing a lot of stress and a lot of the
yeah,
pressure and a lot of demands, really, really
yeah,
demanding parents and whatnot, right? The society needs
yeah,
them to actually teach the kids so that they can be useful, and all of the
yeah,
stress coming from the adults, coming from the brains of all of the teachers and schools, now it's all, you know, imposed on the kids. They have to learn more, they have to pass all of the exams, they have to score high, otherwise, right, there's a failure for the system. and
yeah,
and even like you said it right, I think a lot of people, especially when they understand a little bit of the concept of why, like how the knowledge should be taught and how kids can actually obtain the knowledge and be
mm,
inspired to learn more and more,
yeah,
ultimately they can actually figure out on their own without having to rely too heavily on relying too heavily on the teachers or the
yeah,
school. But
yeah,
then but then their passion or their way of thinking cannot withstand the rigors of the society and also the economy, right? In a way,
yeah.
they gotta make
Well,
money.
yeah, yeah. But then, but then employers now are saying, they're saying that the children that they're getting to join them aren't skilled enough. They said they haven't got enough skills.
Yeah, yeah.
There's there was a book recently that I read, and it's called Forget School, and it was by a guy called Martin Illingworth, and he met a group of people who had kind of were really successful in terms of they had their businesses, they had their work, and they all say that they're successful. Like they started learning after they left school. Like school did nothing to help them, and they're saying when they employ people now, they don't look at school qualifications because they're not relevant.
Right.
So if you've started getting employers now who are going, do you know what? It does, like if somebody's got good exam passes, like they are still not suitable for the work that we're doing,
Mm.
then you start to ask a question about, well, what is it that you need, and how do we start making sure that that is there? Those being adaptable, being creative, being able to problem solve, being able to collaborate with each other, being able to like critically think about a problem and spend time thinking there. Uh,
Mm.
uh, like I remember doing when I used to be a maths teacher, yeah, and I was a head of maths, and I organised lots of competitions. And we had another school, we had an international school, private school, and the style of questions that were in this competition were very problem solving. And when they were getting the questions, like some of them, like if it was like dividing a quadratic equation by something, their method and their technique was flawless. As soon as they knew what to do, they were like, and they would produce it perfectly, as if, like, they were so well practiced in it. But as soon as there was something that was a little bit more like, what is this question saying? And I can't see what technique I use, they were just stuck. So they were very, very good at applying a routine when it needed to be done, which, okay, a lot of jobs are repetitive and
Mm.
you did all that, but when they were faced with a problem, right, they didn't know where to start, and
Right.
it was really interesting seeing. Whereas some of our kids were quite good at thinking about what to do, but then didn't always have the skills to or knowledge to just apply it to the situation. So
Yeah.
there is a mix. It's just different ways of thinking, I guess.
So you everything you're saying right now, I don't know, all of a sudden I just conjured up an image or an analogy in my head about, are you into soccer?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like a soccer match, right? All of all of the players are really into and really enthusiastic about their role, right, in that
Yeah.
match. However, I think the match is for something else. The
Yeah.
match is actually for the sake of the entertainment for the audience.
Yeah.
And so maybe the education system is actually operated, whether it is in the traditional way or in the inspiration or um, creativity based way.
Yeah.
It teaches kids to be self-disciplined or something, because
Yeah.
literally this whole world right now can become very saturated, especially when we have like all the tools, right? One
Mm.
website tells us one recipe about the same dish, the other says a different thing, right?
Yeah.
And either recipe can actually give you the dish that you are looking for, right? So it's not about, like, it's more about the options right now, but
Yeah.
self-discipline clarifies what you
Yeah.
want. So as long as you, as kids, stick with the system, kind of following the herd a little bit and
Mm.
trying your best to withstand all of the rigors and meeting all of the expectations, is just like how you narrow down all of the options you have, because literally you go with the flow or you'll be spun out of the game and
Yeah.
do something else,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's like a double-edged sword. So
Yeah.
going through a really, really high score based or driven system, education system, can really help a kid learn how to actually stick with
Yeah.
what is
Yes.
best for them
Yeah.
using their own
Yeah.
self-discipline,
Yeah.
right? And narrowing down the options, the available options, is actually one of the most crucial things in order
Yeah.
to navigate through life in this
Yeah.
modern society. I think this is what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's interesting. It's interesting talking to you about it. You've obviously, you're an intelligent person. You've got a lot of thinking going on. Very creative brain.
Thank you, thank you. And
Yeah.
I love talking to you too. And I know that everything you're saying is actually taken from your work, from all of your experience. But on top of that, it's taken from a heart of a good teacher, because I don't think a good
Yeah.
teacher is good enough, because
Yeah.
he or she might be very interested and driven just to deliver the pieces of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Teaching the
Yeah.
kids the importance of the knowledge, and also
Yeah.
inspiring them to actually
Yeah.
love the knowledge. So
That's right.
teachers teach them 2 or 3, but the students or the pupils will be willing to go for the rest in order to add it up to
Yeah.
10. I think it's actually
Absolutely.
separating a good teachers and excellent teachers, and I think you are an excellent one.
Yeah.
May I ask you, like, you quit your job, you quit a lot of the schools already because you don't like
Yeah.
the way that they operate the
Yeah.
system,
That
right?
was what happened. Yeah. I quit the school. I was there for 12 years in the last school I was at, and it was really good because the old head teacher, right, I could work with, and I could say this is what we do, and they would always be open to it, and they were progressive in the way they were thinking about children, so we could do all that. But then when the new one came in, it's like we would have conversations, but like, like it just wasn't, we weren't aligned, and we got to the stage where, like, I just had to leave. Like, you realize, honestly, because I fought it for a long time, thinking the best place to change is from being here and working. But when they're the head and you're not, like, there's only one winner if they're that stubborn, and you just have to find your tribe somewhere. So I left there and went to work for a year in a pupil referral unit where the children in school who get kicked out, like the really naughty ones, like I went to work in a place where they go for a year, because I wanted to learn more about how we can become more inclusive. And that was brilliant. But then this organisation got in contact and wanted me to work with them, which is what I've done now, only for a year, but I'm with them now. And it's great work that we do. But I think it's fair to say I'm still angry, like angry with the system.
Yeah.
But I'm in a good place where I can affect change now. Like we get asked from the top level what our views are on different things. From government change, whether they do anything with our views or not is another thing. But we can start writing papers, and we've got more influence because we are growing more school. I mean, we've only got 100 schools or so, 120 schools in England, but it's a start, and we're a growing network, and people join us and they go, God, this makes so much sense. I didn't know there were people like this out there, and we just connect people. So like when we read a really good piece on leadership or behavior or curriculum design or any of those things, then we connect with the authors or the researchers, and we say, can we share this with our schools so that we can all have the learning? And that's what we do. Or if a school's doing something really well they've been working on, they share it with the network, and we have conferences and lots of virtual events on all this stuff, which are just brilliant. So it's spreading the word and getting used to it. But and we're a not-for-profit organisation. We don't. We're not set up to make money. In fact, it's the opposite. We say to schools, if the network can grow, then we can put the prices of joining us down. So if you can find somebody else, and we have this, we made these little badges, and they always say if not us, who?
Yeah.
And it's always that question, we believe that being part of a network and collaboration is really important. And if it's not us, then who is it? Who are you joining up with? And how is that sort of thing? So that's the sort of thing that we do. And on the other side, I also do a lot of stuff that's not the passionate side of it. Like a lot of admin-y and getting stuff organised, and so I've been doing a lot of that today, but I just got too cold and I need to go back and do some more, really. But I'm glad I found you. Glad I connected with you. What was your name?
Same here. You can call me Dave. What's yours?
Dave.
Yes.
Shane. Yeah.
It's really lovely to talk to you. And even though in my head right now, I still have so many other questions, because you appear to be a very knowledgeable, experienced, and also enthusiastic as a teacher.
I'm still learning, but I'm definitely experienced. I'm definitely enthusiastic.
Yeah, you are really enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, or you still have some time, I just want to ask you one last question, and I promise I will.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the system, the education system, mainly to teach our kids, right? All the students out there. Should we have a system to teach the teachers too? Because teachers nowadays, without being really enthusiastic and energized like yourself, I think a vast majority of them is actually sticking with the job just to make money too.
Yeah.
And they probably don't understand how the society is right now. Maybe they are lost in keeping pace with the environment and with the technological development. So they don't know if their major, what they are teaching all the students, might be possibly practical at some point. So they're just going with the flow. They're just teaching what they are told to teach.
Yeah, they do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when that is not clear on the teacher's end, I think there's no way that we can actually sit down and talk about how we teach the students better.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I mean, that is the thing. And it is about hearts and minds, it's about where it comes from. But we are starting to do work with teacher training organizations to say, here are the things that we do. So one of the schools that we work with has got a lot of I can't remember what they call them, like new into the career teachers, like early careers teachers, like people who are joining, training for you, and that stuff. So we now are doing work with them about, and a lot of it is around the kind of like knowing who you are and what you believe in, because you come into a system which is when I started teaching, I thought the way my school was the way all schools were. So when they told me to do things in a certain way, I thought that was it, and that's what you needed to do. And it was only after I'd been teaching probably for 15 years when, and there were things early on, by the way, and I thought, this isn't right. Like, my career progression only happened because I got fed up with the way it was being done. I thought, this isn't right. So I started off as a maths teacher, and the way that the school I was at was teaching maths, I thought, I don't agree with this. This isn't right. So then I wanted to become a head of maths. So I did all the work I needed and then applied at a school and got a head of maths job, which still involved the same amount of rigor of what you do. But the view I had was people need to be engaged with what you're doing. They need to see the relevance. They need to understand stuff. Rather than just marching on through your curriculum and hoping everybody's keeping up and prescribing it in a way, stopping and taking time with people and letting them explore more so that they really get a love of the subject. And that was always it for me. I think when we love something, we'll do more and more of it because we love it. Do you know? If I don't like it, go back to DIY. I remember having a broken toilet roll holder, and it was broken for about 10 years because I just didn't want to go and fix it. Yeah. And that is what it feels like when you go into. We can all remember at school, subjects that we didn't love and we hated, and you're walking along the corridor on the way there, and your whole body is changing and your brain's closing because it's not ready to be receptive to stuff because you're scared of it. You don't like it. So you've got to foster a love of stuff first. If you don't love something, you're not going to do so well. That is us as adults, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah.
So okay. So if you don't like something, but you're forced, or maybe you're forcing yourself into doing it, then yeah. Of course, maybe for the first couple of times, you will be successful in still carrying it out. But then maybe the fourth time, the fifth time, you procrastinate a little bit. Yeah. And then the fight is developed to the point that you want to give it up. You want to switch gear to another thing. Yeah. Right. That's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. But again, extrinsic motivation, as we were talking about earlier, is still motivation, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Yeah, it's not the best type of motivation, but in order to think, say you did want to go off to university, or you wanted to become a doctor, but you didn't enjoy, I don't know, English or learning English, but you know that what you've got to do is you've got to work at it. That isn't a problem necessarily, but again, it's that thinking about how you are developing those dispositions or mindsets or habits of thinking or whatever we want to call them, that go, do you know what, I can still be motivated by something that I want to achieve, even if it's not my bag. It's why people go out and wash their car or something. Yeah, nobody really enjoys it, but your car was filthy and you like it when it's all shiny and looking good. So you go through that, the hard stuff that you don't like. So it is complex. It's a complex thing, but ultimately, if you're going to school all the time and you haven't got anything that is pushing your buttons, and you've got everybody forcing you to do things that you don't want to. Like, that's no balance. Like everybody, there's somebody who I knew as a parent who's just written a book actually about the same thing. He was a parent at the school we were at, and she's written it by. She's done stuff. It's called Lights on Learning, and it's all around. What is it that, like understanding the phase when your lights are on or your lights are off? So it's a really simple, like you're either engaged or you're not, or your lights are on or your lights are off. But what you need to do when you're in a situation is understand whether your lights are on or off, and and what the factors are that are making it happen. So you're actually understanding your own motivation, so that you can still move forward rather than freezing somewhere. It's interesting stuff, and I'm learning, like I say, all the time about it. I'm lucky in my job because, like I say, I do get to meet really brilliant people who do great stuff. Like, I'll read a book on something, whether it's to do with relational practice and behavior or something, and I'll go, do you know what, this is brilliant. And then I'll get in contact with the author, and then like I'm having a chat with them, and then and then they're talking to like the whole school, like either a conference or an online event. So it's a real privilege. Like, all the people that really inspired me when I was leading in a school, whose books I'd read, like I contacted all of them, and now like a lot of them are like, not like friends, but I could easily just contact them and just go, hey, how's it going? This and that and the other. Would you do this? And they're really strong connections that I've got. And they hated it when the new thing came in, but they just went along with it. And I never understood it, because I think, like, if you don't believe in what you're doing, you don't care about it, then why would you bother? Like, I know there's the thing about, okay, I've got to pay the bills and all that sort of stuff, but you can still do that, but do it in a way that, like, or look for it, or aim towards something that you can do to change. Like, you've got to do stuff that you believe in, or else what's the point? I don't get it. It's like, why would you do it?
I think it's really hard to believe in something, and in this chaos of having so many options, right, directions out there.
Yeah.
Teachers can teach this, but then later they can teach other things. They can be doing something else that's completely different from teaching. So I think in order to develop a passion or a love for something, it's not about the motivation. So over the years, experts and researchers have been trying their best to really separate the definition of motivation. So they have the intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. But for me, though, whether it is extrinsic or intrinsic motivation, it can never get me that far in order to be successful with things that I think important. Everybody starts something believing that it is at some point practical or important for them. But then by working hard at it, right? Through all of the hard work, the passion develops, because not only the passion is developed, but it is actually backed up with a lot of like confidence, because repetition, hard work, and repetition, right? And hard work again really reinforce the passion and also the confidence. And when you feel confident, that is coupled with the passion that you have and the importance of the work.
And it's what's it called? Is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Have you seen it? It's the triangle of needs, where it starts off with the basic things that we need to learn. So, like, we need to feel safe first of all. Then we need connections with people. Then we need this, and the very top one, the highest one that you can get. So, is called self-actualization, which is where you then want other people to do it as a result. It's like, so one of them is, but you get these growth needs. So you go from the needs in order to survive and be able to do something.
Right.
So I've got to feel safe needed, warmed, loved, connected to, all those sort of things before I can do anything. And then you start going into the growth needs. And like, so when you start learning things and you feel successful, you become motivated. So you get to this sort of self-motivated, a bit like say, like I learned chess, yeah, like I play a bit of chess. And like when I got to a certain level and started liking it, like I was self-motivated. I didn't need anybody to teach me. I wanted to teach myself. So I would go out and find, like, I don't know, YouTube clips or chess books or people to help me. So I got into this point where I was doing that. But they say the very top one is self-actualization, which is where, like, it's then about wanting other people to, like, be able to understand it as well. So you go through this motivation yourself to the bit where you want to motivate other people by the work that you're doing and stuff like that. So interesting stuff. Anyway, look, I am going to have to go because I've done any work for ages and I'm literally getting so in trouble.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for dragging you.
No, yeah. But it's lovely talking to you. Yeah, take care. And if I see you again on here, we carry on.
Yeah,
But yeah,
hopefully we can talk again. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you go.
Nice one. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.